Yeah.
See all the dogs outside. They got goats too. They have 2 goats. They have 1 chicken.
Yeah.
All righty, I'll call this meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Mr. Pennell?
Here.
Ms. Hall? Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Labutus?
Present.
Mr. Lang?
Present.
Mr. Marmy?
Present.
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Barker?
Here.
We have 9 who are present this evening. Next, if you join us in the invocation by Mr. Blake, if you please stand. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Now you bow your heads. Precious Lord, we come to you tonight. We want to thank you on this All Saints Day, remembering those who are loved ones and individuals who we recognize on this day. Thank you for their love and leadership and compassion. We want to thank you for the leadership that you provide for our city and for our people, that we're decisions that we make, the decision makers and the sound of my voice, do what's right by our people. We want to thank you for the individual blessings and the collective blessings for our community and all things that you've done for us. And all these things, we thank you for that. And we say amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Blake. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda tonight, we have caucus. That's the time for council to discuss anything pertaining to the agenda tonight. Do we have anything? Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to excuse Ms. Hall.
Motion to excuse Ms. Hall by Mr. Marmy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Blake. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. Next, we have our minutes of our October 18th, 2021 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those? Motion by Mr. Labutus, second by Mr. Barker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. We have one appointment this evening by Mayor Hall, reappointing City of Newark engineer Brian Moorhead to the Newark CIC Community Improvement Corporation, known as Newark Development Partners, term to begin January 1, 2022 and expire December 31st, 2024. Mayor, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just keyword reappointing there. I think Brian does a wonderful job on there. And of course, through the economic development, things that happen across the community, it's great to have our engineer sitting at the table through those to not only be informed, but also give us 2 cents. So I appreciate his reappointment.
Thank you, Mayor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. We have 3 reports this evening from standing committees, one from finance, one from service, and one from capital improvements. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We have no reports from city officials this evening and no communications. Next on the agenda, it's time for comments from citizens. This is basically your chance to be heard. This is not a debate with council or a question and answer period. This is just your opportunity to speak. There's one opportunity now and another opportunity after the legislation. So, is there anyone who would like to speak during this first opportunity? If you please raise your hand, we'll have you come up in order. We'll start over here, sir. You just give us your name and address for the record.
Yeah. Dave Lipstrom, 40th North 40th Street. Just with respect to the ordinance second reading, just had a question. If the improvements on those projects actually are they actually in? Since you're accepting them for dedication, are they actually physically in? For example, the
Which ordinance we've talked about?
public streets, Connors Pass, and the additional right of way on Mall and North 21st Street. I don't know that the one on 21st Street is in, but I'm wondering, I haven't been up to Connors Pass, but I'm just wondering if those streets are actually in yet, or if they've been bonded and guaranteed that way rather than prior to putting them in. And the other comment is I'd like to congratulate the city on the plantings, the wildflower plantings that have been done at the various off ramps on 16. Very attractive, very helpful to pollinators, and it's a good sign. I'm really happy to see it. And then I talked to the guy from the Ohio Prairie group where the seed comes from the other day. He told me he was working with the city and with ODOT. So congratulations, keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen in the second row. Whoever had their hand up back there, somebody.
Caleb Chapman, 9397 Swisher Road. Good evening, council. This is my second time attending city council, but I've read over the minutes of the last several meetings, and I'd like to speak to a reoccurring theme that my fellow citizens have touched upon. My church has a warming center just down the road from here for the homeless every Saturday morning from 8:30 to 11 a.m. to provide food, a place to rest for a few minutes, hot showers, laundry, and most importantly, prayer for specific needs in their life. I'm well aware Newark has a serious homeless problem, but living outside the city, I do not have to deal with it day in and day out like most of the people in this room and those who have spoken before me. It weighed heavy on my heart to hear how many people are fearful, not just of their kids playing in the park or of their home being broken into when they're away, but even afraid to sit out on the room front porch. It was also extremely disheartening, but not surprising to hear how the local police are failing the citizens of Newark. What is perhaps the most frustrating part of that situation is that we will all have money taken from our paychecks to fund said police regardless of how well they serve the community. Council, this is what I would like to speak to. The government police have failed this community, this state, and this country. We saw video proof time and time again last summer of people's property and bodies assaulted while the police across the country stood by and watched. In 1989, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that police agencies are not obligated to provide protection to citizens in Cheney versus Winnebago, as well as Town of Castle Rock versus Gonzalez in 2005. We need a different source of security. We need to let private enterprise succeed where the public sector has failed. In 1980, a small town in northeastern Ohio called Reminderville contracted with a private security firm. This took place after the Summit County Sheriff's Department quoted the community $180,000 per year for emergency response and an occasional patrol. For half the price, corporate security provided twice as many patrol cars and a 6-minute emergency response time compared to the 45 minutes response time by the Sheriff's Department. Unfortunately, this experiment disturbed local officials who set up their own police department to the detriment of the taxpayer at a higher cost in 1983. Another example of privatized police services is from Oro Valley, Arizona. The contract was agreed in 1975 with a flat yearly fee of $35,000 to be paid to a company called Rural Metro, a savings over what the same state services would have cost. Over control of policing was still retained by the town authorities. During their time securing Oro Valley, the company employed some innovative operating methods. They initiated protocols where residents who planned to be away from their house leave their address with the company and their property would be checked in on twice every 24 hours. Burglary rates fell from 14 a month to an average of 0.7 per month. However, the Rural Metro contract encountered opposition from the Arizona Law Enforcement Officers Association Council, who refused access to training programs and refused to grant accreditation. When a state attorney questioned the legality of the arrangement, Rural Metro decided to pull out. Notably, when the town authorities took over full provisions again in 1977, many costs increased. One change was to replace the civilian employees of Rural Metro with uniformed officers on higher salaries. By 1982, the police budget of Oro Valley was $241,000 when Rural Metro had done the job for $35,000. Council, I know what I'm proposing sounds extreme, but please let me tell you what extreme really is. Extreme is having random cars parked in your yard with strangers inside passed out from overdosing. Extreme is finding a dead body on the edge of your property. Extreme is seeing people walk around your own community publicly indecent with no fear of repercussions. Extreme is being too afraid to sit out on your front porch because you don't know who might approach you. I would close with one final point. I would like to encourage everyone who is physically able to brush up on any necessary training and responsibly carry a firearm or keep one close by at all times. The fastest police response in the world can't compete with your own, and an armed society is a polite society. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
All right, I'm not a good public speaker. It's not my job. So bear with me. I do think the Newark police are doing a fantastic job in the circumstances that they have. Hi, my name is Scott Staley. I'm the owner of Tech Auto Sales, 379 Union Street in Newark. I signed a 5-year lease, January 1, 2021. Short 10 months that I've been in town doing business, the homeless population have broken into my building seeking shelter.
They've used cars, my cars and my building to use drugs and alcohol. I pick up their empty beer cans, their liquor bottles, their syringes, their needles on a daily basis. My building has also been broken into by thieves. Luckily, the alarm has scared them off so far. Newark has drug addicts overdosing on the sidewalks and dying in residents' backyards. Fact. Sorry, I lost my spot. Like I said, I'm not a good public speaker. In the last 2 weeks, I've had $4,500 worth of converters stolen from cars on my lot in less than 2 minutes. These are professional criminals. I've read the minutes of the last 2 years of the meetings in this very office. Sorry. These issues are being brought to your attention with little to no result every time. I've talked to many residents and business owners in Newark. Many have the same issues with drug addicts, criminals, homeless people. Some have far worse issues than mine. I read a very interesting quote the other day. Hopefully it doesn't ring true in this room. You cannot leave those who have created the problem in charge of the solution. History dictates your current policies and solutions are ineffective. As a very invested business owner and citizen, what are your new policies and solutions for these major problems, if any?
Thank you. Ma'am.
After listening to the last two, Linda Mossover, 224 Green Meadow Drive. After listening to the other comments, one of the things that I would like to address is we cannot expect our police to take care of the homeless situation or the in-shelter situation. Yes, increased safety would be helpful. Back in 2018, we recognized that we had a homeless situation in the city of Newark or in Licking County. At that time, a group actually went over to Columbus and visited some shelters, and a group was formed to kind of address this. In July of 2018, a group got together and actually had the General Dollar building was purchased for the purpose of possibly being a low barrier shelter. After that, there was a task force that was formed. The task force consisted of people who were business people. There were people from the Newark Development Partners, there were people from United Way. We had people who, one of the things we requested is a person who was actually on the streets with the people who are unsheltered. At that time, there were several organizations that were grassroots organizations. One was the Licking County Champions. Another one was the Crusaders and the Newark Homeless Outreach. And there was another one that was St. John's Helping Hands. We needed to select someone. I am retired, so basically they felt that I had the most time to devote to this, so I was selected to be on that group. That group did an RFP, ended up hiring 2 consultants. One consultant with analytical insights who spent months having public forums, meeting with stakeholders, and the result of their process was an action plan, a 2020 action plan. The other consultant was hired to address the low barrier shelter. Her name was Sally Lucan. She had a lot of experience in working with shelters. She worked to try and find out whether the Family Dollar building could be converted into a shelter. Unfortunately, she ran into some issues with the people she was working with and asked to terminate her contract. So after she terminated a contract, a small group of people were designated to work on the shelter. And this was back in, I had asked, once Sally terminated her contract, I had asked what was being done with the shelter. And I was told that a small group had been put together to look for alternatives for putting together the low barrier shelter. This was in the end of October in 2020. In the end of October, I received a letter saying that the task force was no longer necessary and that we are being terminated. I asked at that time, well, what was going to be done with the Love Area Shelter. I had got a email from Mr. DeWater saying that they had scheduled, a small group was working on it, and there would be some plans looked at in December. In January, there was an article in newspaper saying that the Family Dollar store was going to be handed over to, made into a thrift store. So this is why some of the problems still exist. During COVID, the shelters that we do have in town, like the Salvation Army and the Haven, basically they were at reduced capacity. When you're short of shelters to begin with, and then you have to operate at reduced capacity, that just creates more people on the streets. I am sure that maybe some people are committing crimes, and I have no problem if you're committing a crime that you are prosecuted for it. However, if somebody is arrested for criminal trespassing, they may serve maybe 30 days. I don't know these sentences, but right after that is served, they're right back out on the street with nowhere to go. So what I would like to ask maybe in the future is for this council to maybe re-look at the homeless action plan. It is very long. This is a copy of it. I'm not offering to make 100 copies for council, but it is on the Licking County Coalition's website. So look at that. Some action has been taken. We know that there is a lack of affordable housing here in Newark, and another consultant, and it's a consultant that's familiar to Newark, it's the same one who worked on the 2028 plan, has been hired to address possibilities of looking at ways to increase the affordable housing. Another measure that has been taken is a recommendation to provide maybe more mental health services or a coordinated effort to maybe assist law enforcement with people who are on the streets. And I know that a council person, Mr. Blake, has secured some funds to make that decision happen. So one of the things I would like to propose is maybe that for council to maybe designate someone to at least revisit the homeless plan, because we are not going to basically arrest the situation away. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda this evening, we have ordinances on the second reading 21-33.
Ordinance number 21-33 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Mr. Marmy, and Mr. Harris. An ordinance accepting the dedication of public use of additional right-of-way at the intersection of Mount Street and North 21st Street.
You've heard the second reading of 21-33. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
I make a motion that we adopt 21-33.
Motion by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 21-33? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mark you off there. Mr. Fennell?
Yes.
Ms. Hall? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
21-33 passes 8-0. Next on the second reading, we have 21-34.
Ordinance number 21-34 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Mr. Marmy, and Mr. Harris. An ordinance accepting the dedication to public use of the streets in Connors Pass subdivision phase 1.
You've heard the second reading of 21-34. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
make a motion to adopt 21-34.
Motion by Mr. Rath, second by Mr. Marmy. Is there any discussion on 21-34? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Fennell?
Yes.
Ms. Hall? Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
21-34 passes 8-0. There are no ordinances tonight on the first reading. We go on to resolutions on the second reading, 21-64.
Resolution number 21-64 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Marmy, Mr. Harris, and Mr. Barker. A resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to negotiate and enter into contracts for the provision of necessary services regarding the composting, recycling, and disposal of leaves, brush, grass, trees, and stumps without competitive bidding.
You've heard the second reading of 21-64. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
make a motion to adopt 21-64.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. We have any discussion on 21-64? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
21-64 passes 8-0. And finally, we have 4 resolutions on the first reading, 21-65.
Resolution number 21-65 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Harris, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
21-65 will be held for 2 weeks until our next meeting on the 15th. And now we have 21-66.
Resolution number 21-66 expedite by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Harris, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
21-6, Mr. Marvin.
Mr. President, make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on resolution 21-66.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmy, second by Mr. Lang. Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have some things that need to be expedited. We have some bills that are due that have to be paid right away. And also we have a payout that we always expedite to get the funds to that individual.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Janine, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt resolution 21-66.
Motion by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Lang. Is there any other discussion on 21-66? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Fennell,
Yes.
Ms. Hall, Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Labutus.
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
21-66 passes 8-0. Next on the first reading, we have 21-67.
Resolution number 21-67 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service for the city of Newark, Ohio to enter into a lease purchase agreement with Park National Bank for the lease purchase of 4 police cruisers for the division of police.
21-67 will be held for 2 weeks until our next meeting on the 15th. And finally, we have 21-68.
Resolution number 21-68 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Marmy, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service for the city of Newark, Ohio to advertise for bids and enter into a cooperative construction agreement with Pathways of Central Ohio, subject to the appropriation of funds for construction of a retaining wall.
And 21-68 will be held for 2 weeks until our next meeting on the 15th. And that's it for the legislation tonight. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have your second opportunity for comments from citizens. Again, the same rules apply. This is not a debate with council or a question and answer period. If you want to speak, put your hand up. I'll call you out. We'll start with you, man.
Hi, my name is Rose Allen. My address is 1095 Empire Drive. I live in Newark. Excuse me, this is not what I do. But I have my concerns in forms of questions, and I do have some ideas that I would just like to throw out here. So just bear with me, please.
Sure.
I've been made aware that we are getting a lot of people without shelter from citizens like Columbus, Cleveland, and et cetera, because they are looking for safe areas to live. And apparently Lincoln County is considered a safe haven for them, which now means that our numbers for homelessness is rising. So is it possible that there are more areas that those without shelter are now living at? Or do we have numbers? And if so, who keeps track? I'm also aware that there are programs that help with jobs for those who are homeless. Are there any programs that clean them up to prepare them for those jobs? If so, are there numbers of who has actually received jobs and or shelter? Does the law officer only give sweeps at camps at request of whose land they are on? Is trespassing the only reason for the sweeps? Does the city have unused land that can be used for camps where they won't be considered trespassing? If so, is it possible the area could be zoned off or something with the concept of a campground? Maybe a name, parcel number, or lot number, or something that would give them an address, at least until there is some sort of housing available. Maybe even try to designate a head person for the area, or a third person team in the camp to help enforce cleanliness in the area. In Columbus, there was a place that I went to serve and met a head person of the camp. His name was Daryl. The camp was even called Daryl's Place. He also worked, but he rode a bike to a certain point then caught a bus that was provided to him to take him to and from that point. Then he rode his bike back to the camp, but then it would take building of relationships to do something like this. Have the city tried, or can the city do contract agreements with landowners by railroad tracks and bridges if the area is kept clean? I only ask because the homeless seem to ignore the signs and they are there anyway. Are there city funds that could help keep these camps or areas clean? Would the city be willing or consider providing porta potties in these areas? If so, would the city be willing to consider contracting out someone to keep them clean? This could help in the area of human waste, which is unhealthy. Is it possible for a dumpster to be put at least close to these sites and designated areas to be assigned for garbage bags and other garbage to be dropped off? Maybe the bags can be donated by local businesses. That would save some money. This could help with keeping the areas clean. If so, is it possible for inmates to go to get the bags from point A to point B? Or however it is that they do when they clean around the streets and freeways? That will save some money. Maybe if those without shelter are made to feel like they are part of community and actually see that the city is trying to work with them, they might be more willing to let others in and accept the help that is being offered. It could be an incentive if these things are provided in order not to lose them and their community not being swept, that they would have to keep the area clean, which on the other hand is hard to do when what is needed to keep the area clean isn't provided. Has it been considered how they are to get to all these programs that have been set up for them and possible jobs? Or is there a transportation program with vouchers for them? Maybe a couple of passenger vans could be an option. How does one get identification with no address? How are applications completed with no address? Accounts open with no addresses? How can they be contacted afterwards with no phones, emails, or addresses? Does those without shelter qualify for any money or government funds? If so, is there something set up in any of our programs to assist them with that? Or is the issue no address? Any programs that assist in the area of health outside of mental health issues? How is that communicated to them? Have there been or are there talks of any type of transition program to help them to permanent housing? What does it take to set up a transition program to get government funding to purchase maybe vacant homes to refurbish? Or is this something the city can allocate funds for? I don't know. The reason for asking is, what about the concept of halfway houses and boarding houses for them is done for inmates? That would at least give them time to clean up to find a job. That would also help create jobs. They could transition from a halfway house to a boarding home once they finish their programs, then transition from boarding home to a low income based place. What about campaigning to get the community involved by adopting someone without shelter, especially businesses? Maybe if possible, a business could adopt one and build a relationship with them, help them to the point that they would actually hire them. Same with porta potty and garbage businesses. Maybe they would be willing to adopt an area to provide a free service. The concept of each one pick one. And individually, those of us who care, we can also adopt one. Start with speaking, do a ride-by, wave, drop off a meal every now and then. Check order. Inquire about their needs. Drop off personal items. We want them to keep clean, but they don't have what they need to do it. Items to keep them warm. Toilet paper, hand warmers, couple bottles of water. Just anything to show that we care. The bottom line is this. This city is responsible for making sure that some sort of housing or shelter is provided for those who are made to feel hopeless, helpless because of being homeless. And it should be held accountable for not doing so. The shelter that didn't happen on the east side for whatever reason was wrong. So my last question is this. What are the plans to make what's wrong right? In some cases, helping others might take a village, but in ours, it should take our city.
Thank you. Gentleman, the second row.
My name is Jim Guy. I'm from the 4th Ward. I live at 42 North 22nd Street. I've enjoyed listening to the comments made by the fellow citizens tonight. Been kind of eye-opening for me. This is my first New York City Council meeting that I've attended, but I've read minutes before and watched some of the sessions online. Good luck to all of you that are running for re-election tomorrow. I want to start by saying thank you to the street department for paving the street in front of my house recently. It was overdue and it looks much better. Upon reading and watching council meetings, it occurs to me that there is a lot of agreement by city officials that Newark has its share of problems and that changes need to occur to solve those problems. However, it appears to me there are not a lot of solutions being proposed to fix those problems, just a lot of head shaking and talk. I have been working with city council members, the mayor's office, and several city department managers for well over 2 years to try to have a code violation enforced in my ward or near my ward. To date, nothing has been accomplished. Seems to me that within 2 years, a code violation should have been able to be fixed. I get referred to one person or another department. They usually call back quickly. They listen to me, are kind and polite, but still nothing gets ever done. Nothing ever gets done. The can just keeps getting kicked down the road. I have a question for City Council. When was the last time one of you has walked around in your ward? I am specifically addressing the code violation about trees and shrubs growing over and above sidewalks. That, I believe, is City Code 1028. When trees grow into or block our roadways, they are a safety issue and taken care of promptly. When the same occurs on sidewalks, safety is not an issue. Some areas on West Main, or I think most of West Main Street had handicap ramps put in at the corners so that people in wheelchairs could use that sidewalk. And there are places where they can't get by on the sidewalk because homeowners will not keep their sidewalks paved and in good condition, and the trees have overgrown and shrubs have overgrown the sidewalk. I believe it should be a joint venture with our city officials and also the citizens' responsibility for watching over the city. Part of the city code defines what is the homeowner's responsibility in maintaining that property. But when the homeowner is unwilling to assume that responsibility, it then becomes the part the burden of the city to take on that burden. Section 1028.05 gives the public service director the authority to have those bushes and trees trimmed or removed to meet the code. After 2 years, why am I the one that has to alert council of this? Another issue I'd like to bring to council's attention are track sidewalks. These also are a safety issue. I believe it is time to pass a code, if there's not one already, on the maintenance of sidewalks. Children and adults use the sidewalks daily, just as cars use the roadway. They should expect to be able to use them without fear of tripping. Finally, I would like to use a story to highlight the speeding car issues that I've heard about in recent council meetings. That other citizens have brought up. When I first started driving, I was told by others, do not speed on such and such a street. Not even 1 mile over the limit or you will get a ticket. As a result, very few people would go fast on this road, which made it safer for everyone. If the police would enforce code violations more strictly, perhaps there would be less infractions. Just an observation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Someone over here had their hand up, I think. You two, and then Daniel, and then. Yeah. Go ahead.
Patricia Perry, 282 North 21st Street, Newark, Ohio. I'm here tonight. Number one, I will make a quick comment. The homeless population is not coming from out of county. We see 100+ people a week. They're all right here from our county. Some of them have lived here, moved away, came back to help family members that were ill. Their family members died and they were thrown out. I mean, they had nowhere to go. With the moratorium off of the evictions, we're seeing more and more people, kids. We just helped a person this week who is a man with a 16-year-old son living in his car. He works, but he only makes $14 an hour. He don't have any credit. I mean, he can't get a place. I mean, so he's living in a car. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that it is our problem here. It is not other counties being bussed in, as some people want to say. But the main reason I was here is Mr. Marmee spoke about the fentanyl test strips being illegal. So I just wanted to make a few comments about that. There's currently a House Bill 456 that is in committee that is to take the testing strips off of the illegal paraphernalia. Right here in Lincoln County, we do have several places that distribute the fentanyl testing strips. Shepherd Hill, LMH, they give out a little packet. They gave us a bunch recently that comes with 2 testing strips, the instructions on how to use them, and a resource guide for treatment, which is the same as we do with the ones that we get. These are life-saving to many people, and many lives are saved all the time. Cleveland recently, well, not recently, last year did a 500 strip test pilot. They analyzed all their data on how many lives were saved by the group of people that they, had a rapport with. And then they expanded their program. They got a $15,000 grant from their county. So as everybody says, it's illegal, it is saving lives. And I, for one, am about saving lives. And that's what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Weatherly.
Nancy Whaley, 7441 Stewart Road. I'm also here representing the Newark Homeless Outreach. We're going to be having a public health clinic this Saturday. I have some flyers if anyone would like one. We're partnering, as we have for the last 3 years since I've been involved. We partner with several different community entities, from youth church groups to Boy Scouts. Last weekend, Northridge High School came out and passed out blankets, I believe. For the public health clinic, we're partnering with the Licking County Health Department, the Central Outreach Wellness Center, and the Family Health Services of East Central Ohio. We are a street outreach, so we will be outside doing this next Saturday. We'll be doing Hep C testing and treatment, flu vaccines. If you have your flu shot, come on down. Rapid HIV testing. This is the second time we'll be doing this. Hep A vaccine, first and second dose. I will be getting my second dose, so if you want a Hep A vaccine. And COVID vaccines, first, second, and booster. Since the Newark Homeless Outreach came into existence about 4 years ago, it's grown, and it's grown into something that we can put on this public health clinic for the community because we have community support. The only reason we're in existence is because of the community. And we serve the community. We're a gap service. We're there to help people survive one more day, whether it's so they can get into housing, like the man and his son living in their car, or perhaps they have a substance use disorder so they can get into recovery or to get help. That's what we're there for. If you've been down on East Main, you'll notice that we're building a building. Hopefully it'll be done in a week or so, fingers crossed. There's a whole nother story going on there. It will be for storage. It will not be a shelter. It will truly be for storage because we are getting donations from the community that we have stored all over Newark in our various homes and garages and basements. And my husband would dearly love to take his garage back over. So if you have any questions, if you'd like a flyer, I have them. If any audience members wants a flyer, we have them. I just want to say, I am so proud of what this group has become and what it's doing for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford?
Daniel Crawford, 163 South Second Street. Empathy goes a long way. You know, I guess you can call that the word of the day in its own right. You know, all these stories you hear about, you know, people with their fears about the homeless and stuff. I mean, they're not exactly not empathetic. They're worried about what's going on in their own backyard, if you will. But I'm glad, you know, we're hearing from them to see what needs to be addressed. But also, I'm happy and proud of the stories that I hear from like North Homeless Outreach. I'm proud to call these people my friends. And, you know, I get kind of excited when I hear about something they're doing, you know, some of the things that they've been able to accomplish. But the unfortunate thing is, yes, there's very much a need that has to be addressed. There's a gap, as she put it, in services here. And of course, there's some things that the city doesn't have the ability to take care of, that they don't have the ability to do. But I think empathy can teach us to obviously not demonize these people who are struggling, but to see how they got to where they are now. I've addressed it many times before. Part of what allows me to be empathetic, as I've mentioned so many times before, is my own history with homelessness as a child. So it's like, when you see how other people end up in that position and how it's a very complex, diverse story, you know that no two stories are the same. And there's a whole host of people who are homeless who would never commit a crime, they're just trying to survive. Of course, yes, there are some who are, I guess you could call it a criminal element that have to be addressed. And that's why it's good to hear from citizens. Also good to be proactive, as another gentleman who spoke earlier, you know, was asking how often do members of council walk in their wards? And I think that's important to be proactive, reach out to citizens, find out exactly what's on their mind and see what needs to be addressed. So, of course, I'm going to continue to be an advocate regardless of how tomorrow's election goes. You know, if I'm lucky to be elected to serve amongst you, I'll be a fierce advocate on council. Of course, if I'm not elected, you just continue to see me up here bugging you every so often. So, yes, about tomorrow, I want to wish the best of luck to everyone. And of course, also to you, Spencer, and to you, Bill. Tomorrow, I'm very excited for, so we'll see how it goes. And make sure you do your civic duty, both. Have a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Ma'am? Mrs. Smith, and I know it's something Smith, so you can tell me what it is when you get up here. Baldwin Smith. There we go.
Hi, Rochelle Boland Smith,
There we go.
237 Violet Court. I just wanted to say that knowing that the Newark homeless outreach exists and does as much as they do, makes me feel so proud of the city. That we have this element of grassroots things happening. It is just incredible. And I mention it to a number of people in other cities all the time. And I want to thank you guys because you're the best. You really are. So, thank you.
Thank you for always being there.
Are we done or?
I thought I was done, but I wanted to find out how I could help for Saturday since they won't. It takes a village very much, and that's how this happens. But if you want for this real, this incredible leadership, I hate to see what happened to the city.
Thank you. That's one. Is there anyone I missed while she's on her way up?
That's fun, 33 Summit. Wow, there's a lot of testimony tonight and a lot of points to be made. But I am wondering who is advocating for the residents. As I've spoken to people, they haven't had anyone to advocate for them if they've spent thousands of dollars on security systems and fences to keep the tools of addiction out of their yards. I spoke to a resident who pulled out a bag of 40 needles out of her kid's place. She had 6 kids, and the kid brought her a bag of 40 needles and said, "Hey, Mom, what do I do with this?" And so who raises money for the residents for these security systems? Tens of thousands, maybe even $100,000 in security systems. I just spoke to a resident who spent $9 grand on a fence to keep people from overrunning their property and to keep the needles out because they have grandchildren. You know, where they get the needles from? People want to know. Where are they getting the tools from addiction? Where are they getting these test strips? People want to know. Because fentanyl is deadly. I agree, fentanyl is deadly. But in order to have a test strip, you got to have fentanyl. So if you have more test strips, you get more fentanyl. And it's just a growing beast. And you've got one will work. If you don't have fentanyl, then you don't need test strips. And so it's a logical problem. I don't know, but I do know that 4 grams of fentanyl, you know, we talk about this, we go around different places to speak about it with champions, is the size of the Abraham Lincoln's beard on a penny, is fatal. And the people at Salvation Army are picking these test strips up out of the children's play area. And who is safe? Who is safe? Who is advocating for the residents? Who is saying, "Oh, wow, you could have put $5,000 into your house, but no, you got to get a security system." Wow, you just had to spend $3 grand on a fence. Oh man, sorry about your carpet. But, and speaking to the shelter, it is not, in my perspective, it's not the city's job to provide a shelter. As nonprofits, we are given thousands of dollars every year, thousands, through grants, through, oh my goodness, through a number of opportunities, and through targeted compassion instead of, shotgunning things to meet needs when, through targeted compassion, let's build a building. I've been to several parts. I've lived all over the country, and we did a thing in Florida called the Shepherd's Project, where we would buy real estate. We get together, we put our money together, and we would buy homes. In fact, that's what Champions is doing right now. We are buying homes to put people in where they can transition. They don't stay there. They don't stay stuck, as in a lot of quote unquote government sponsored things. They don't stay stuck, they transition. And that's key. Do they want to transition? Do they want to transition? And there are many programs here, like the Look Up Center, and many things that teach people life skills, that teach, in fact, I have a friend that just graduated from one of their job programs. It's a great thing. And in fact, we are a program overload. In fact, it's so good that people are coming from other places to be here because we're so good. We're so good at meeting needs. And so the key is, do they want to transition? Or do they want to remain in services? And all of us have been in rough places in our lives. And transition takes a step. And it's something that's built, you need to build courage to do it. But you need to do it. And there needs to be boundaries. There needs to be limits. Here and no further. You may participate in this behavior to a point, but then you're responsible for yourself. And then, again, personal choice, do you want to change? And another thing that needs to be defined is low barrier. What really does that mean? Because people are afraid of it. You say low barrier, oh, does that mean they're losing, are they using drugs? Are you giving needles out? What does that mean? Or can they overdose? What are they doing? I mean, people are very compassionate and they want to target an answer and they want to be part of an answer, but they don't want to be enabling. And I know that's the big E word, but it is something that is a real factor. We do not want to enable non-productive or deadly behaviors. And because there tends to be overflow, as in we're finding out with needles and the like. But I do appreciate the heart, I really do. Because we all want to be part of the answer, because we love people. And we care about them. And most of us have been in a place like that. I know I have. And so, but there's a choice. So anyway, I'm gonna do my own transition here. I want to thank the city. During this run for city council, they have put up with me not knowing processes, not knowing technicalities. I would get citizen requests, and I've been privileged to work on the hang street lights and work on storm drains and sinkholes and speeding deterrents. I'll tell you what, that's a lot of fun. In fact, we're going to start some businesses with that. And I'm getting streets on the paving list. I'm working on flooding issues, and it's a lot of fun. And so I want to thank David Rhodes and Brian Moorhead, or Roger Loomis and Nick Schultz. He has been so patient with me. And Tim Hickman, and I'm sure there are people that I miss for my emails and being so patient as they explain processes to me so that I can relate them to citizens. And so again, and thank you. And I want to honor Mr. Blake and for letting me just tear into that but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any city officials this evening? All right, Mr. Buck.
Thank you. Just real quickly this evening, just a couple updates. As I mentioned at the last council meeting, we had a retirement that occurred in our office. We acted swiftly to fill that position, hire Amber Larison. She'll be starting on November 14th. So stop up in a couple of weeks, introduce yourself to Amber. As promised, we're working diligently on the budget along with the leadership of Mr. Jim Wysick. We're having 2 to 3 departments come in per day to get this to you in early December. That's our goal. I believe Ms. Paul will be in the morning. So Don, if you are up at 9 a.m., stop in and welcome you as well.
I'm busy in the morning.
Thank you.
Any other city officials? Law Director Moore.
Thank you. Good evening again. Thank you all for coming down and making your comments. And like Beth said, I do appreciate your compassion and empathy for what you're doing. But there were a couple points I wanted to address. Mr. Martin is absolutely correct about the fentanyl strips. They are illegal to possess and use for testing fentanyl. Because the bill's sitting in committee, it doesn't make it a law. And the current law in the state of Ohio is that fentanyl strips are considered drug paraphernalia when they're used to test substances for fentanyl for ingestion. So until that changes, and I believe Mr. Marmy's response was in regard to asking for funds from the city to provide those fentanyl strips, which seems to be contradicting when tomorrow I could charge somebody for possession. So, if Ohio decides to exempt those strips, then Ohio decides to exempt them. But as it stands today, they're still illegal for the testing of, and I think the exact statement from 29/25/14 is testing equipment for identifying, analyzing the strength of, effectiveness, or purity of a controlled substance. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I just wanted to address that issue. Second of all, I do disagree that our police are failing. And speaking as the law director, speaking as a prosecutor, I see our police succeed every day at work. There are a lot of issues that we have to tackle here in this city. A lot of issues that may be beyond the police reach as these ladies address with homelessness. And to the comment that, you know, arrests aren't always the answer, that's true. But as the law director, they're kind of a key for me. Now, I don't want you to think that in the law director's office, that when we charge people for criminal trespassing, for example, that we're just wanting to throw them in jail. That's not what we do. In fact, I'm a member of the LIFT treatment team, which is our drug court team. I watch miracles happen every day in court. I watch people break their addictions and succeed and go on to live very productive lives. And there is no greater satisfaction to me in my job. But the key to that is I have a conviction. And then once I have a conviction, I can get them into those services. For example, on criminal trespass, if I have someone come in and I talk with the victim, I say, what do they need? What can I do for them? I'm not looking to just throw them in jail. But what can I do for them? Do they need an alcohol drug assessment to address their addiction issues? Do they need a mental health evaluation to get them hooked up with services? Can the probation department help them seek housing? And that's me staying in my lane as a prosecutor. Okay, but that's our idea of how we can use arrest, how we can use prosecutions to get people on the right path. And that's what we try to do. The days of people going to jail for 30 days on misdemeanor charges with the COVID situation is not a reality at this point. So how do I make sure I don't see them back? That's our goal. So I just wanted to clarify that. And you know, arrest is sometimes needed because we also have to protect the people that are being terrorized. It's twofold for us. How can I protect the people that are being terrorized and get help so that this doesn't happen again? So that's our goal. With that, I pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Law Director. Mayor Hall.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming in, sharing your opinions and ideas. This is what public forum is about. And certainly on Monday nights here, we appreciate that input. A lot of what the city does, and there's, you know, a balance of a lot of things. Decisions, process, many things. One of those is financial, and I'm not here to just say that's the only problem. But I want everyone to understand Newark has a 1.75% income tax. Columbus is 2.5%. Now, people have heard me say this many times. If we had Columbus's, which is way too high, we'd have $10 million more every year in this city. 10 million. $10 million solves a lot of problems as far as hiring for police, for fire, buying equipment, whatever ideas are that people have to try to help make our community better. So I do want you to understand we're about the 16th largest city in Ohio by population, 16, 17, it just depends on where you're looking. But as far as income tax collections, we're number 47. So you kind of put that in perspective. We have many cities smaller than us in population that have more income tax. That's because a higher rate or higher gross pay, you know, that does that too. So there's a balance there, and we'll be working real hard, the auditor's office, my office, and council here to balance a budget coming up. I think the balanced budget means at the end of the day, we can't spend more than we bring in. It just makes sense. I hate to say, you know, I get it in Washington, but that's some of the biggest problems, spending more than we have. And, you know, our people down the road from us and our kids will be paying that huge service to that debt at the federal government level. I have been in a room before and had to find $4,000 in the budget to get it closed and balanced. 4,000. And ask each of my directors, I need 1,000 from each of your departments. It's just how it works. And we are a good, strong city because of that, but also we have challenges at times. And as I say, you know, a lower income tax rate is great for people that are on lower income. You know, I do not like people to not be able to afford to live because of high income taxes or high utilities. Our water rates, just for the water service, is in the bottom 25 percentile in the state of Ohio. We're right in there. So we work on that when we try to keep the system up. We try to keep it affordable. So that does challenge us at times. We just bought a new ladder truck, a new bucket truck, $1.4 million. You do it every 25 years, 20 to 25, and you have to do it. It's to fight fires and save lives, and those are things that are critically important. I would agree with our law director that our police force is doing a wonderful job. And they're doing a wonderful job with what is given to them. If they had 10 more officers, would it get rid of crime? I don't believe that. I believe we'd have quick response to some calls, we'd have some different things. But we're talking about those things every week of how to get it, possibly software helps that reporting. There's many things we're working with, not to be in place of an officer, but to supplement an officer. So anyways, we work together. I'll jump from that real quick and thank the downtown businesses and everyone that helped with safe trick or treat around the square. It was a great thing this year. Last Thursday night, thank gosh the rain fell off because about 7:30 the spigots came on, but it's a great night for the kids and they just have a wonderful fun time, and certainly through COVID and through the processes, the last couple of years have been challenged. We put together packets, my wife and I, and certainly to thank everybody in the city that helped hand them out. We handed out 1,000, so we know that at least 1,000 kids came through, 1,000 bags at least, and yeah, we probably have 1,200 or 1,300, so we had a few less. But businesses around the way get excited. They set up tables, they buy candy. Our candy's paid for, believe it or not, by people that come in, and we've had fundraisers the past few years for soup and salad. And a lot of our employees donate to buy that, and that makes it fun, so it didn't come out of the general fund. But anyways, it was a great night, and the kids enjoyed it, and we always love that every year. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you to, once again, we've heard comments from residents, comments from business people, business owners, and, once again, we're here sitting, thanking you for coming. But really what the undertone is, you're looking for action. You're looking for some type of forum to provide a direction as to some type of solutions. There's not going to be any single one answer to homelessness in our city. But I do believe that we can provide a way, if it's either through the safety committee of this council, or if it's through an ad hoc committee, there needs to be some avenue so that discussion can occur so that we can, let's have the police chief come in, from his perspective, what is it that he and his officers are dealing with, and what suggestion, earlier tonight, finance committee, we approved the technology for doing online reporting and things of that nature, but let's have the chief come in and talk to us about what's the challenges and opportunities for our division of police. That's something I think that we could do. We could provide that avenue to do that, because our people, every 2 weeks now are coming back into this room, sharing their experiences out there in our city, in our community, and this council should take some type of action to do so. So that common sense talk and those solutions, we can actually find, working together, find some type of solutions. Asking for action. I don't believe that the city will solve all the homeless issues in our community. I'm very proud to serve on the board of Behavioral Healthcare Partners. I'm happy to do that and been doing that for a while. And just an invitation to all of members of council and the public. This Thursday, we're opening a new urgent care facility. Thursday at 11:30 at 104 East Main Street, which is in the old KP Hall, right across the Speedway. And this is going to be a needed service, because I do believe that we do have a fine police department. Our division of police, they're overtaxed. I mean, I think many of us agree that they're overtaxed, and so hopefully this will be a way to alleviate some of the workload, because our officers aren't trained to deal with people with severe mental illnesses. I mean, our officers are not trained to deal with people dealing with substance abuse issues in the severity of ways. They'll take them to the hospital will evaluate them for a period of time, but then those individuals are released. And so we need to have this urgent care that's opening so that they can get these individuals. We've heard testimony about, people dancing in the streets and having schizophrenic episodes, dealing with bipolar episodes. Those individuals are examples that where social services such as Behavioral Healthcare Partners can step in and get those people out of the neighborhoods and into avenues of care. When we hear, testimony of people saying they're fearful and they're concerned about safety for their own property and for their own homes, many times, many of us know who those people are. And so if we could get them into the right avenue of care through using this urgent care and getting funding of doing the direct outreach with another employee of behavioral healthcare partners, I think that's going to be positive for the community. Now, that's just one piece of it, because homelessness deals with housing stock. You can look at it as I have been looking at it through the severity of mental health and substance abuse, or even through just dealing with situations where they're couch surfing. So there's many issues, and I know I'm running long, Mr. President, so I'm wrapping it up. But I really think that this council can take action and have the police chief come and have the fire chief as well, because our fire department and our medics are dealing with this as well. So I hope that at some point in the future, we can have testimony here in this room from our two chiefs, from our safety forces. I do want to give a thank you. South 4th Street looks beautiful. Director Rhodes, Mayor, other city officials, and South 4th Street, south of the railroad, it's open. The lights are wonderful. So that's a very Roger Lewis. I don't know if he's still around, but it looks great, and I think that's a very worthy project. And then Mom is here, so I got to give a shout out, or it won't be good later on this evening, so I really do this. South 2nd Street has a store, big corner store, and they're starting a new thing where they're going to have guest chefs. And so to help this small business, this Saturday from 3 to 8, if you're looking to give a dinner, we're going to sell about 35 to 50 dinners, first come, first serve. And so many people remember my grandma Maddie, and she won several awards in our Rib Fest contest years ago. And many times at Park National Bank, she was called the Vice President of Ribs. I don't know, Mom, if you're going to get any of those titles, but we're going to go down and sell some dinners on Saturday to help the store on 2nd Street. And the significance of that is because at some point, 2nd Street is going to be torn up, and this small business right on 2nd Street is going to be affected heavily. And how we get traffic in and out of that business when that construction is going on, we're going to put some heads together to figure that out. But so we want to support them now as we can. So Saturday from 3 to 8, if you want to get a dinner, come on down, and again, it's first come, first serve. And already announced the urgent care opening. Hopefully many of you will be able to attend that at 11:30 on Thursday. And it's open to the public too. So anyone can sound my voice, please feel free to come to that. And with that, I've said enough, so I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Mr. Fennell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will also try to be brief. If you haven't voted, please show up, vote, do your duty, and support everybody who is up here, to all the candidates, even who are not running. Like myself, we have an easier time. For those of you that are, I wish you the best of luck to all the candidates out there. I know firsthand how difficult it is. That this is a very stressful time for a lot of people. So I just really do appreciate all the work that you're putting in, because it shows that you care about the city, and you're proving that to everybody in this room. To the Newark homeless outreach. Also, Daniel, you're absolutely correct. I believe that leading with empathy is the best way to approach the situation. And if you want a beautiful example of what that looks like on the ground every weekend, the outreach does that. So if you haven't volunteered at the outreach and you want to understand the situation better, that's how. Join them. They will welcome you. They will let you help them serve. I've served food with them as well. We've done code drives. And they're just an incredible organization, and they model that behavior. And I think that they're just a really important part of the solution. And you notice that I said a part of the solution, because it is multifaceted. It is really complicated, and it will take a huge amount of effort. And I know that this past few years have been a little distracting for a lot of people, because we're dealing with a 100-year pandemic. So it is understandable how this fell off the radar, but it's back on. And you coming in and speaking, that's what puts it back on the radar. Keep doing it. And with that.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like the law director and the mayor said, I struggled with the statement that our local police have failed. Our local police hasn't failed. The men and women put their lives on the line every day for us. And I suggest maybe you go out and write the police department, find out what they really do, and you have a better understanding about the statement you made. And also, maybe people have failed in this country. We're not the same kind of people that we were 20 years ago. don't get on the police, maybe we ought to start getting on the people. We can do a little bit better. Yeah, that just starts me tonight, but anyway, don't forget to set your clocks back Saturday night. You have extra hours sleep. Wish everyone well tomorrow. Those that are running, stay busy, find something to do all day. And I always believe that God has a plan, God has a will, and he'll let you know what that is tomorrow. So with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Labutus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, thank you everyone for coming out this evening. Mr. Guy, connect after the meeting. I'll come and chat with you. Thank you for coming in this evening and sharing your concerns. And we just ask everyone about tomorrow, if you haven't already, your most important civic duty, go out and vote for your favorite candidate tomorrow, moving that midweek if you haven't already. That I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Labutus. Mr. Lyon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, thank you for everybody coming, who came tonight. Obviously, there's a common theme. It doesn't necessarily line up with, the things I'm hearing as I'm walking, knocking doors in my area of town, but it's, everybody's got their different concerns throughout the city. I guess I'd say, tomorrow's a really exciting day for the city. I don't know if we ever had 17 candidates on the ballot for council at the same time. So if you want choice, you've got plenty of options tomorrow. 8 seats up here could change. So that's a pretty dramatic day. It's a pretty exciting day for Newark. I'm excited to see what happens. I wish everybody luck. I think it's been a hard fought campaign. I think there's a lot of new candidates that have really worked hard. So I want to commend everybody that's put in a lot of hours to contribute and give back to your community, whether you are successful or not. You push an incumbent or you get on council, you certainly shape the conversation and you've had an impact doing that. So just want to commend everybody for putting in their time. I guess with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. The bad news is after tomorrow, Mr. Harrison will still be here. Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I need to call a finance committee meeting first and foremost. I want to also thank everybody who's come out and provided their input. I look at my role and what action needs to be taken. The action that needs to be taken is we need to increase our safety services, and this council needs to support that. We need to support everything that we can for the police chief as far as his hiring process, encouragement. The sad part is there's not enough names on the list, but we do need to increase that. We need to make sure that we're supporting everything for our safety services, and that's first and paramount, and the money that we spend from this council to help this situation should be focused right there. That is why our city government is in place, and that's the action that this council should take and represent. Every decision that we make, we should always be thinking of the safety of our citizens before we make a decision on even something else, whether it be a budgetary issue or whatever that may be. The mayor has indicated his words were rung true. You only have so many funds, you have to spend it wisely, and you have to spend it on what's the highest priority. Safety of our citizens is definitely the highest priority, and we need to make sure that we take care of that. We have to do that within the law, and we cannot do anything outside of the law. Again, like the law director has indicated, if the law changes, then we would probably change our mind about some things. But while the law is in place, we must adhere to the law. Hopefully, a lot of the other issues, I know Mr. Guy, I'll talk with Mr. Labutus to see if there's any support I can provide, but as far as just any experience and getting some things done or some explanations. I want to wish everybody who has been campaigning the best good fortune and the best of luck in the election. I want the citizens to be served and represented in a very good way. And I think that all the candidates are quality candidates, and I believe that the citizens will be represented well. The last thing I want to bring up, Mr. Lang and I had the we're fortunate in meeting with some of the, with Mr. Moorhead, Mr. Rhodes, Representative Frazier, AEP, and the broadband providers. We are in that process. We're discussing it. We're seeing what we can do. How can we help? If there's any area of Newark that does not have broadband, bring it to our attention. Any citizen that doesn't have it in a residential area, the focus on these funds is residential. So we need to make sure that we're focusing on those areas first and foremost. There is a deadline for the application process for that. So if there is an area where there's no broadband available, then we need to bring that to their attention so we can include that on the application for funding. There are a couple of areas that have been noted. There's some other larger program or plans that would be beneficial, but those may be down the road. We just want to do our best to make sure that it is available to all citizens, especially, we saw the need last year with the kids and the pandemic, and they're home at school, and then if they don't have broadband, we want to make sure that that is available. I know Newark City Schools had to put some hot spots out there in certain locations to help citizens. And hopefully we can remedy that situation also. And with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Mr. Rath.
Thank you. First off, I'll call a service committee meeting for the 15th. I want to remind everybody to do their civic rights tomorrow and go and vote. Happy to say that we have put down the final coat of paving on 40th Street. That should look very nice today. Mr. Lipster, I'll let you know, I did ask Mr. Hickman tonight, since we now have a drag strip up and down 40th Street, when he's gonna get the speed trailer out there. It is still on the list, and we're still waiting to get that there. Saturday night, my wife Jen and I came down and volunteered at the Booze and Brews event. I don't know if anybody knew about that or not, but it was a phenomenal event. It was held back here on Church Street in front of 31 West, and the feature Stein Brewing and Moe's Barbecue, and they actually blocked off the block and brought in a huge stage, had some great music, had a lot of craft beer, brought in a bunch of food trucks. Even with as much rain as we had, I know they sold over 350 tickets to it. It was a great event. Look forward to having that come back, and that was a good time. On the broadband, I just want to let you know that there is a thing called an emergency broadband benefit. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but if somebody qualifies, if somebody is receiving government assistance in some fashion, there's a list of criteria, but they can get up to a $50 credit for internet access, which should pay for everything. I know you guys know I work for Spectrum. $50 would get you high-speed internet. That's cost you anything. It's the same thing with Windstream or whoever else is around. But that is available, and that $50 credit goes for up to 6 months after the pandemic is declared over. So if you know anybody that needs that, have them go online, have them apply, take care of it. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I appreciate all of the comments and everything. I really do appreciate all that you guys do with the outreach. I'm glad that we have people here that are caring enough to do that. We do appreciate that. And the city supports you guys as much as humanly possible. We do that financially, and we do that morally and spiritually. So we appreciate it. Mr. Chapman, suffice to say, you didn't gain a whole lot of fans tonight with your comments. I will say I did agree with one statement that you made. That is, an armed society is a polite society. I practice that, I preach that. How wonderful it would be if we didn't have to be armed to be polite. With that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rath, and Mr. Barker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, we live in a very special city. Newark's very special, and it shows tonight with everyone coming here and speaking. You know, during the past couple of months, we've been asked, do people know what's happening in city council? Do people care what's happening in city council? And you all are showing tonight that you care, you know what's happening, and you want to be a part of it. We have a lot of services here in Newark. And the thing that I have said many times is it's time for some of these services to come together to help everyone. And that's something I feel very strongly about. The amount of services that we provide people, we shouldn't have people falling through the cracks, but we do yet, still to this day, have that. And so with that, it's time for people to come together. We hear it, we talk about it. I can tell each and every one of you tonight that we've had these discussions after each meeting with our safety services, with our, Director Rhodes, the mayor, his team. We're talking about these things. We're trying to find solutions within the law that we can work on, and we can work with outreach and with other grassroots organizations. None of this is falling to deaf ears. I really want to assure everyone of that. We're here to help. The council is here to help. The administration is here to help. Newark's a special place, and we don't want that to go away at all. I want to thank Director Hickman and Director Rhodes. They received an email earlier today that I was made aware of some individuals dumping furniture and tires and trash into the river. And that's just not something we can have. And so I know tomorrow, one of the first things that will be happening is how do we stop that? Also, some property maintenance issues that we've been made aware of individuals stripping out cars. It's private property. What can we do? We're not sure. But I know they will get on it because, again, we need to help these people. We need to be the solution. We can't be the solution for everything, but we can help. Again, I would just echo other comments here of make sure you get out and vote tomorrow. It's your civic duty. Make sure you vote. And with that, Mr. President, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. I would just add, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening and expressing your opinion. We certainly do appreciate that. This is your Newark City Council, and we welcome your opinions. So we welcome you to come in. With that, since it has been a very long meeting, don't forget to vote tomorrow if you haven't already voted, like everyone else has said. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Barker. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign. Again, thank you for coming, and we're adjourned.